All right, guys, let's move on to Alabama-Clemson. The rubber match, of course, Alabama-Clemson. The first two games were a very high scoring. They split the first two games, although Clemson did cover both of those. And here they are again, the number one team in the country, maybe getting a little bit disrespected. It opened at a pick'em, and that was a very early opening line, but it's now all the way up to 3. Pinnacle now has Alabama at -3, -115, and Clemson +3, +102. So a big market move favoring Alabama. Obviously, there's no Deshaun Watson this year for Clemson, but you know, the quarterback who replaced him, Bryant, is obviously doesn't have the name or the cachet or the media flash, the media attention that Deshaun Watson had. But statistically, he's only a little bit worse based on all the statistical measures that I've seen. Let's start with you, Jimmy the Bag. You're the first one off the bat to take a gander at this tough line here. Is Clemson getting once again a little bit disrespected by the market, getting 3 points here, and it appears to be headed up?
I do think they're getting disrespected by the market. Jalen Hurts had a very good year, and he helps this rushing attack so much. He threw for 1,940 yards, 15 TDs, 1 interception, and then he rushes for 760 yards, 8 TDs. A 1 interception. I believe 4 fumbles or something all year. I mean, they're just such a smart, well-constructed football team. He looked good all year, and then this last game, Auburn completely shut him down. He went just 12 for 22 for 112 yards. They went scoreless for 28 and a half minutes. The one weak spot for this Crimson Tide team is that they only have one receiver that caught more than 14 passes. So if you can key on Calvin Ridley, if you can double up on Calvin Ridley, who is going to hurt you other than the running game? And if that is the case, we're dealing with an excellent Clemson defense that should be able to take care of things. So at first, I just wanted the under in this game. And then watching this line continually move in Alabama's favor, I want to take the 3 points as well. I think Kelly Bryant did a really good job replacing Deshaun Watson. That was a very difficult situation he was put in. He throws for 2,678 yards, 13 TDs, 6 picks, and then runs for 646 yards and 11 TDs. Clemson have 2 running backs that can do so much damage. Each had 103 carries combined for 20 TDs. They have 3 receivers who caught over 46 passes. Each caught over 500 yards. You can't just key on one of them. When I look at the two teams, I see that you can create a defense to slow down Alabama, and it's more difficult to do that with Clemson. And if I'm going to get 3 points, I'll take the 3 points, and I'll take the under.
Jimmy the Bag liking Clemson plus the points and the under. What about this? Let's go to a big man on campus. But think about this point, because we'll come back to you on this point in a bit, Jimmy the Bag. Alabama, of course, how do they respond off of losses? Well, we don't have that big of a sample size of them. They're rarely off a loss. But they're off of a loss, their last game to Auburn, and they're off of a loss, their last game against Clemson, of course. So the last game against Clemson, that's a loss that's hanging in their mind, and they're coming off of the loss to Auburn as well. So those are 2 losses that are looming in Alabama's mind here. Maybe they'll be hyper motivated here and hyper focused, and this is a rare spot for Alabama, coming off of a bunch of losses kicking around in their head, right, big man?
Yeah, and I got to ask, Peter, I mean, you're a big line guy. We're all big line guys here. Why is Clemson a 3-point underdog in this game? I don't get it. I mean, it's all about the name recognition, and Alabama continues to get, which I find interesting because Clemson is as big a name as Alabama. I'm not really understanding the line at all. I think it's
I actually think I can answer that. One thing is that we know is that in football, usually line movements are driven by sharp action or big public action. But in the Super Bowl, that is actually not the case. Public action can overwhelm sharp action very easily. And in college football playoff games like these, in huge games, I think it's the same kind of deal. Public action can overwhelm any kind of sharp action or any kind of big public action or pseudo sharp action that might be going the other way. So when you have Alabama coming in here as a very small favorite, and Clemson with no Deshaun Watson. I mean, the public thinks of Deshaun Watson as something they want to bet on, but Clemson as a name, without Deshaun Watson, I don't quite think is as attractive as to the public as just the name Alabama is. I think that's your answer right there, big man.
But even listing Alabama as a favorite, interesting. Again, we have to talk about the season that we're in right now. You mentioned Clemson's defense; it might be the best we've seen over the last couple of years out of this team. And I don't know, and I'd be interested to hear the panel's thoughts here. I don't think this is a strong Alabama team as we've seen. I'm not a huge Jalen Hurts fan, frankly. They have a great run game. I'm not going to disagree with you there, but I think their secondary can be thrown on. I do. I think defensively they had some injuries up front with Sean Dion Hamilton and others, which is concerning. And you wonder how will Alabama deal with yet another dual threat quarterback. Kelly Bryant has been magnificent. I mean, you can argue that you know, what has he done wrong this year? I mean, even you saw how they missed him in that game against Syracuse. He goes out and they lose up in the dome. But I think defensively they're the better team. I think offensively, I think you can make the case skill position player wise they're just as good, if not better. They have good receivers. Jimmy mentioned their run game. They just do everything better. I think slightly better than Alabama. And I don't care that Alabama again they're maybe going to feel disrespected or something like that after losing last year and that kind of thing. But they are the favorite in this game, and I think that's a lot of staying power for Clemson in this one and motivation. They're not going to need the motivation, but they are an underdog, and they're going to know that before the football game. I just think Clemson's a better football team, and as an underdog, I have to take them.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson pretty clearly has the best defense in the nation right now, and I think out of the three Clemson teams that have appeared in the college football playoffs, you can make a pretty strong argument that this is the best version, even without Deshaun Watson, because Bryant statistically not that much of a drop down from Watson, small drop, but not a huge drop, and defensively, this is the best defensive team I think that they've ever fielded. Drew Martin, let's go to you. Is Clemson once again being disrespected on the line here? Alabama, of course, lost 5 of their last 7 games against the spread, including, of course, a straight-up loss to Auburn. So Alabama pretty clearly overvalued by the market over the last half of the season.
Pete, I think everybody's making great points. When you bring up that they've been overvalued towards the end of the season, it was never in this price range. They were always over a field goal. So if they win by more than a field goal, you would cash your ticket on the Crimson Tide. Looking at the Clemson side, obviously one of the best teams in the nation. There's no argument. Kelly Bryant has stepped up. Jimmy made a great point. I look at this game from a little bit different angle, more coaching wise, because when you talk about NFL handicapping versus college football handicapping, this is as close as you're getting to the NFL. Right. There's NFL guys all over. Both of these head coaches could have NFL jobs if they wanted. They choose to be here. And the extra preparation time, I just have no interest in betting against Nick Saban with extra preparation time. We've seen it year in, year out. I know Dabo Swinney has a good bowl record. Some of those matchups I think were very favorable towards Clemson. Clemson this year, 0-1 in a dome, playing in a dome. I don't like that. Losing to Syracuse, now having to go against this Alabama defense. You can make all the arguments you want about Alabama offensively. Alabama defensively, I think, is very strong, especially up front. I don't think Kelly Bryant saw a defensive line like he's going to see against Alabama, and when he did, he didn't look all that good against NC State. NC State, I believe, was the best defensive line that he faced. So all of those reasons have me leaning towards the Crimson Tide. Now, I wouldn't suggest it if you get past the key number of 3, but I think that that's a huge reason for this movement towards Alabama, the extra preparation time with Nick Saban. And Bigman, when you bring up, you can throw against Alabama, who was really able to throw against Alabama? I mean, Auburn at home, they didn't score 4 touchdowns. I really don't see it. Texas A&M had a capable offense. They didn't really put up much. Ole Miss had a next level quarterback. They only had 3 points. So I don't really see a lot of teams being able to really move the ball against Alabama's defense.
All right, big man on campus. Who really was able to throw against Alabama?
Keep in mind, Mississippi State should have won that football game against Alabama, and that was due to the fact that Mississippi State could move the football down the field. Listen, we are kind of, I admit, rooting for trying to find points here. Alabama's a very good defense. I'm not going to disagree. I just don't think they're as strong as in years past. I don't think this Alabama's as good as we've seen. And to counter your point on Nick Saban getting extra time to prepare, I mean, he was virtually given extra time to prepare over that Mercer game to face Auburn the next week. And like I've said, he's shitting his hat. I mean, and they didn't play well in that game. This is going to come down to, can Jalen Hurts make enough plays? I'm not sure that he can. I don't know how good he is, and that's the big problem Alabama's had. They really haven't had a particularly good quarterback in several years. That might be the difference. I like Kelly Bryant more on defense. I mean, Drew, honestly, who would you take on defense, Clemson or Alabama?
It's very close. I wouldn't feel strongly one way or the other.
I would probably, I
Yeah,
mean, if you look at that
probably
Clemson
Alabama.
defensive front, I mean, like 3 of those starters are first-round draft picks, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think, and I think on the back end, I mean, they're fantastic as well. Uh, and you look at the little things, the quarterback play here. Kelly Bryant has done everything necessary this year to be just as good as Deshaun Watson. No one's going to be better than Deshaun. He was a great player, but I don't want to bet against Dabo with all this time. When will Dabo Sweeney get the respect that he needs? I mean, it's time to start recognizing that he might be the best coach in the country. Nick's a great coach. Don't get me wrong, but I can't honestly say I think this is one of the better Alabama teams that they've had. Little things are going to be the difference, as they've been with Alabama in certain games. Kicking, quarterback play. Can Jalen Hurts throw a long ball here in this game? Can he make those kind of throws? And they do struggle defensively at times against mobile quarterbacks. It's just the truth. But this is going to be a great game. I can't wait to see it.
So, Drew Martin, I guess mostly you're predicating this on the system and the spot, similar to the NFL, and like individual player weaknesses don't weigh as heavily in your mind. But you are trusting Jalen Hurts to get this one done, to win by more than a field goal, right?
Yes, I am betting that side. I personally have under the number of 3, but I'm not necessarily hopeful for Jalen Hurts,
Right.
taking 7-step drops and hurling it 25 yards downfield. I don't think that's the game they're going to play. I would see them getting ahead of the chains on first down, on second down, short yardage third downs, and then pounding this Clemson defense that way. Also, the extra time to prepare thing. I mean, Dabo Sweeney is a great coach, but when you look at this is the third matchup now. You go 2 years ago when Clemson lost in the national championship game, and then they won, and there wasn't that extra preparation time because it was the second game. I believe there's only 9 days to prepare for that. Whereas when you go 2 years ago, you have the full month to prepare, and that's when Nick Saban was able to overtake him. So I also bring that into the calculation of why I'm betting.
And one other concern also, Peter, that I want to bring up is, and I don't want to relay back to last year, but it is a good way to look at this game. You do look at Alabama last year. I thought they were a better team last year than they were this year. I mean, they had on offense, they had an O.J. Howard, they had Davius Stewart, they had Marlon Humphrey on defense, and Reuben Foster. I just think with the way they've been hobbled this year, I just don't think they're as dynamic on offense as they were. And that's a concern as well, because even with that team, they still weren't able to beat Clemson. It's maybe they just don't necessarily have Clemson's number. Clemson's the one team that has their number.
All right, Jimmy the Bag, you have had a particularly good, read on NFL games this year, which, again, these college football playoff games are the closest thing in college football to actual NFL games. And we know that, for example, the Pats off a loss historically are great ATS the next game, although that's tailed off a little bit in recent years. But we have a very unique situation here. Alabama suddenly, again, off of a loss to Auburn, off a loss to Clemson last year, and Nick Saban and the whole team off of losses with a lot of time to prepare, a lot of time to focus. Does that concern you when you're betting against Alabama, as it probably would in the NFL?
Well, first off, when we're talking about motivation, this is so easy to get up for. Alabama's not going to be more motivated than Clemson. This is the semifinal. This is so important. The whole world will be watching. And secondly, I can't agree more with what Bigman's saying about Dabo Sweeney. He's just not getting respected. He's just, all these fans are changing the line. They're creating this favorite that shouldn't probably be. This should be a pick 'em. And it's a 3-point favorite because of recency, vividness, biases. Everybody,
which hasn't even been there. Which hasn't even been there. They've owned Alabama. I mean, I don't know what this is all about here.
It's just, yeah, I agree. I agree. It's just this Clemson team is being disrespected. If this was a pick 'em, I might not be so confident taking Clemson. But seeing that you're getting the 3 points, seeing this Clemson team play this year, and as we've seen with certain teams, this Clemson team has just gotten better and better and better. And then Alabama loses this last game. Alabama's not going to have extra motivation than Clemson. There's nothing that Clemson wants to do more than to beat Alabama on this grand stage. I think this is a really great spot for gamblers, getting 3 points and getting Clemson.
All right, Drew Martin, you know more than anyone how much public perception can throw these lines off, especially in a game like this. Seems to me that the public, I'm assuming the public is going to be significantly on Alabama here, but you're agreeing with that side. Do you think that this is not a situation where the public is throwing the line off in a way that is unjustified?
No, I think it should be 3. I don't think it should be. It should necessarily be a pick'em, and I don't. No, I'm not bringing up motivation, but motivation has nothing to do with this. It's about coaching angle, guys. And Big Man, you bring up Clemson has owned Alabama. Give me a fucking break, dude. They won 35-31 in the last minute to win the national championship. Owning Alabama, that's just ridiculous.
Drew, you've not made a point yet to justify why Alabama's a 3-point favorite here. You've not done it. I'm waiting for that. You just continue to listen. They didn't win last year, Drew. Your points are always about what teams almost did. They didn't do it. They lost. And I don't think, again, if you can make your point on why they should be a 3-point favorite here, I'd like to hear it.
Drew, if you can make a point, we'd really like to hear it.
Would you like to hear it, Peter?
I would like to hear it because, quite frankly, you have not made your point yet.
None. There is no point.
Okay.
It's a stupid, ridiculous.
Let's see. Alabama lost by less than 2 scores at Auburn. Clemson lost to who? Syracuse? That's one reason.
Without their quarterback in the second half.
Extra preparation time with Nick Saban. Actually, Alabama won that game with only 9 days to prepare. That's when Dabo Swinney won. That was last year when Clemson owned Alabama. Those are the reasons.
Okay, Drew. Clearly, you don't want to give Dabo any respect. Drew thinks that it's a fair line. Okay, bet that then, Drew. I mean, I'm just telling you.
I have bet it.
Jimmy and I don't understand, and I think we make very good points. This is not a 3-point. Alabama should not be a 3-point favorite. If anything, Clemson should be a favorite. It's just the truth.
And this is how markets get created. Disagreement, strong points, strong opinions where people are willing to put their money where their mouths are on opposite sides. This is what markets are all about, boys. Drew Martin liking Alabama -3, -110. Big Man on Campus and Jimmy the Bag liking Clemson +3, +102. Before I make my decision here, Drew Martin, I'm sure you've looked at this game from a totals perspective as well. Obviously, the first 2 games that these 2 teams played were very high scoring and went way over. Obviously, both teams are significantly less explosive on offense as they were in the first 2 games, but it's again a low total in the 40s. You have any lean on the total?
I lean under, but I'm not going to get there, Pete. To make it short and sweet, the last 2 games going way over. Yeah, I lean under, but have not bet it.
All right, well, we could talk about this ad nauseum. I have to make my decision here, and I will go with, for my official pick, and I'm probably not going to bet this one, but I will go with my official pick. Clemson +3, +102. Clemson +3, +102. I just think they're getting a little bit disrespected talent-wise. Just not quite seeing a legitimate edge for Alabama. Obviously, you give Nick Saban a lot of time to prepare. Obviously, he's going to be a magic maker just like Bill Belichick. But just adding it all up, putting it all together, and getting 3 points, just not quite seeing it. Again, I haven't bet that one yet. Good job on Drew Martin for betting this one under 3 and beating the line move. But I am going to make my official pick on this one. Clemson +3, +102. So Jimmy the Bag, Big Man on Campus, and I all going head-to-head with Drew Martin. We're taking Clemson +3. Drew Martin taking Alabama -3, -110. And in the other game, everyone's on Georgia except for me. I'm taking the under at 60, and that's also a pick from Jimmy the Bag, under 60. -107. Great thorough analysis and breakdowns, everyone. Great coverage all bowl season long, and we will be back to cover the championship game when the teams are decided. Big Man on Campus, Jimmy the Bag, and Drew Martin. One final time, thanks so much for all your hard work and all these videos.